Hey everyone. One thing I find interesting and like to watch is the behind the scenes of a show in production. Because whenever you watch something with quality, it's easy to forget how grueling it probably was to make, especially like a series where you have hundreds of people all working together. And one minor mistake can really cost the final cut, or maybe there being a lack of budget, scrapping away all the work that was already made. Those are the unfortunate outcomes, where a project had actual passion behind it, but still failed. However, for shows that were planned to be made quickly and pumped out, it doesn't matter how much money is poured into it, because it's basically already doomed from the start. And this happened in Netflix, which you'll see here, where there's nobody of a director randomly got millions from Netflix to make a show that was never finished. Which to me is mind-blowing, because it's typically the higher-ups that choose to call for production, but this director actually took the money and ran with it. Like, it actually sounds like the plot of a comedy. And even better, the thing he spent his money with was unbelievable. So, I just think this goes to show how dumb the industry can become.
In 2018, Netflix was involved in an arms race for streaming dominance with some of the largest, most powerful and wealthiest companies on the planet. To try and win the streaming war, they decided to one-up their competitors when chasing new television shows that they considered to be winners, the kind that could drive subscriber numbers for years to come. In one
No, that was before Squid Games. Yeah. That was a real winner. All jokes aside, that was fucking massive.
They were getting a sci-fi epic that would spawn multiple spin-offs and years of repeat seasons that would drive subscriber numbers like their biggest show, Stranger Things. Instead, they got absolutely nothing, except for a man who took $11 million of their money to buy cars, clothes, and cryptocurrencies about dogs. This is the story.
Hey, come on, don't slander Dogecoin. It's bigger than that.
It cost Netflix over 50.
I want to say that guy does look a bit Scandinavian, like Swedish.
Multiple jobs and a whole lot of embarrassment. This all starts with one man. This is Carl Erik Rinch.
Oh come on, yeah, he is Scandinavian, right?
Carl's body of work consists.
He looks like Notch, like an alternate universe where Minecraft didn't blow up. This is what he made for money.
Ronin, a movie that should have been tolerable considering they had Keanu Reeves starring alongside some very notable Japanese actors, but was just, well, it was awful. How awful? Well, it's a 6.2 on IMDb, a 16% critic score.
That's not that bad. It's mediocre, but not horrible.
It also cost somewhere around $200 million to create and only generated roughly $151 million. Which made it not only a critical flop, but also a financial one. This is the type of flop that kills your career instantly in Hollywood. So how does a filmmaker go from losing Universal tens of millions of dollars and making a wet fart of a movie to being handed $55 million and the keys to the kingdom from the largest streaming platform on the planet, Netflix? The easy, short, boring.
I wish I had a point of reference for how much money that was. Because if that movie was like nearly 200 million, I want to know if 50 million is enough for a show.
Control and general operation is absolutely shite. Look no further than their decision to cancel a large number of beloved TV shows each year once they get a few seasons deep, instead chasing new shows that almost nobody cares about. But in this case, the circumstances for the decision was actually quite interesting. Basically, the streaming war in 2018 made all the big players lose their minds. Streaming was exploding in growth, everyone knew it was going to be the new frontier of media, and companies were running double time uphill in the snow to piss in each other's morning coffee. If a show was being pitched around to Amazon, Hulu, Disney, Apple, NBC, Showtime, HBO, Netflix, or anybody else, you can bet that everyone else was trying to swoop in and grab what they thought could be the winners.
It's funny how that drama or that kind of war was big in 2018, but now I can only really name off the top of my head like 5 of these people on screen. I know Prime, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, but Peacock and Showtime, maybe they're probably in the US, but I feel like if they really did want to, win this war, they should like branch out to other countries or continent. And HBO Max, actually no, I'm pretty sure one of my favorite shows, Chernobyl, was from HBO Max, so did it good on that.
Not just because they wanted the good shows, but because it was a double whammy. You could get the good show, and you could deprive your competitors of that potential hit for their platform. After all, at
the same time, there are people who will just like spend $100 every month to have like every streaming service because they just want to.
Monthly shows that are pumped out to prevent cancellations and perhaps lose that subscriber on a long-term basis to the next platform who might be able to hold their attention for a little bit longer. So while this streaming war was going on, Carl Erik Rinsch was running around town pitching a science fiction show which just so happened to be turning heads. You might at this point ask, why did no one bring up that Carl's entire portfolio wasn't exactly impressive? And you would be right to do so. In fact, maybe that's more than Netflix did. But just remember, streaming services right now didn't care. What you did before was considerably less relevant than what you could give them now. They were willing to take big risks for potential gems, especially if they could keep those out of competitors' hands. Essentially, there are billions.
In that offense, nowadays, I feel like there's so many like shit writers that you really do have to like throw shit at the wall to see what sticks. So at the same time, if someone has like a shit portfolio of like the work they've done, you can't really trust them to make like one big hit.
And so they take risks on content that they could find. Also, what some people don't know or maybe realize,
he's massive. He could kill John Wick right there on the left.
Nobody. He was, by most accounts, an incredibly talented filmmaker, most known at this point for futuristic TV commercials for some major brands. He also holds the people calling Eric the protege of Ridley Scott, a director with an incredible body of work, responsible for movies that are considered some of the greatest ever created.
Like Napoleon, come on.
Connection, doors in Hollywood were always going to be open for him. In fact, he was even pushed forward to take over the prequel movie to Alien in place of Ridley Scott, which likely would have had more of a chance of success considering his body of work involved futuristic themes, but instead, he was then attached to 47 Ronin. And of course, we all know how that went, so he was thrust into this $200 million budget movie as his first experience in Hollywood, which was a big ask, and he failed miserably. So his career in Hollywood was now over, of course, but that wasn't the end. He went back to producing commercials, which were successful, and then self-funded a passion project, which he would later pitch to Amazon. It's about a genius life form that resembles humans, referred to as organic intelligent. They are supposed to help humans around the world.
That's like really not on the nose.
In some way, and the humans turn against them. Not exactly the most unique idea, but as a pitch, something I'd be interested in as a sci-fi fan. The problem was, though, it was nowhere near being ready to pitch, and at this point in his career, no one was going to fund Carl. The 47 Ronin situation had made him a complete toxic asset, not only due to the movie performance, but also his reputation on set as a director. There were rumours that he was difficult to work with and more than a little bit quirky.
Oh yeah? Then explain to me why this woman just laughed, like the biggest laugh of her life. Explain that, atheist.
Hollywood circumventing union rules and began shooting what is reported in the NY Times as brutal conditions. In this article, they say that they were shooting in Kenya for over 24 hours straight.
I'll only read that Romanian part. In Romania, the lead actress caught hypothermia doing a scene bare-legged in the snow and had to be rushed to a hospital. They said, "How dare you do that, you're a Romanian actress?" If she was Romanian. If she wasn't, I don't give a shit.
As well as other stories of Carl just being generally a nightmare to work with or for. So at this stage, it's after 47 Ronin, and clearly it had not humbled him in any way or made him reconsider his approach. Luckily though, Eric's production managed to take on investment from 30 West. This should have been a big W, but Eric missed deadlines repeatedly that came attached to that investment and almost lost his whole project when 30 West threatened to take possession from him. Luckily, during the filming of 47 Ronin years earlier, Eric and Keanu Reeves became friends, and Keanu stepped in here like a hero to invest in the project as well as to come on board as a producer, which eased tensions between Eric and 30 West and allowed him to keep hold of the project. Now, with all the money and clout that he needed to succeed, they managed to push out a short 6-episode pitch, with each being 4 to 10 minutes long, and started to shop that around to big studios as a potential 120-minute first season. Somehow, some way, this horror story of a production didn't
come. Oh my god. No wonder he likes science fiction, because he's a fucking alien. Look at his hand.
Streaming world, who started falling over themselves and each other, trying to get in on the action and deny their competitor the misfortune. One after another, they were talking. Amazon, HBO, Hulu, Netflix, Apple, and even YouTube were all hooked. Originally, an 8-figure deal with Amazon was moving ahead quickly, but before it could be finalised, Netflix swooped in at the last minute and secured the project.
Hell yeah.
But it cost them heavily, not just in terms of finances, but they also gave Carl complete and total control over the project, with little to no oversight. They even gave him Final Cut, a privilege that had only been given so far to a handful of their very trusted directors to this date. Not once, though, did Netflix stop to ask the other investors what they had experienced with giving Carl too much freedom, or even people that had worked with him on 47 Ronin, who now worked for Netflix as well on other productions. They were so willing to dump money into anything they could get their hands on that had any remote sign of promise that they ignored all the red flags completely. Right now for Carl though, he had everything he needed and could forge on ahead with total creative control over his own vision, a literal dream for any creative in any field. He was under no one's shadow, everything was his to do with as he pleased, and if he delivered on this, he would be back in the good graces of Hollywood, wiping away the stench of his first massive blunder with 47 Ronin.
I really want to see how this is going to be the downfall, because already it sounds like he has, like, if you have that much freedom as a director, that is incredible. And plus having the final decision of what is, like, shown on Netflix, that is massive. But in the beginning of the video, I got the impression that he just took the money as like a scam, like a very long contract that kind of tricked Netflix to give them the money. But on the other hand, he didn't have like the obligation to make the series, therefore you should take the money and then leave. But it already seems like he is dedicated, so that means the only option for this show to go horrible is just to be, you know, bad. So which I really feel like.
At this stage, Netflix signed the deal at $61.2 million and titled the show Conquest. Production continued, this time properly with unionized workers and a real budget. Very quickly though, people started...
So what if we made this show where there are these creatures, I don't know what the fuck they are, these creatures are kind of like humans, but they overwhelm them in kind of like a conquest.
To realize perhaps why Carl preferred using non-union workers. Within weeks, a union rep was sent to the set in Sao Paulo, Brazil, due to reports and complaints of his behaviour. Shouting, cursing, excessive irritation, just generally being unpleasant to work with. Luckily, that was resolved without much issue after Netflix had a quiet word with him privately. Unluckily, this was just a start.
Like a teacher shaming the student.
Downhill and get pretty crazy. During the shoot in Budapest, according to NY Times and a source familiar with the matter, Carl started telling people that his wife was planning to have him assassinated. Now, obviously, I can't say if she was or wasn't, but considering the other reports about his behaviour, it seemed like Carl's mental state was rapidly deteriorating, and you're going to see that become more and more clear as this video continues. After filming Wrapped in Hungary, Carl's wife tried to get him into rehab due to his use of prescription ADHD medication, which is an amphetamine that can cause mania when used excessively. Which would, of course, explain why there would now...
The best possible drug you have for making a show. Every good... Guys, come on, let's be honest. Every good director is a fucking psychopath on the verge of just killing someone.
Family and crew members had to stage an intervention when they returned to Los Angeles, which sadly didn't work. Now, this is where you're thinking, okay, so he's a bit of a mess at the moment, but he was still making the TV show, right? Well, yes and no. By 2020, Netflix had already reportedly spent $44.3 million on the show, and Carl was dragging his feet.
$44 million on his ADHD amphetamine medicine.
Yeah, about what he'd actually done up until this point. They'd not seen the footage, they were almost completely in the dark. Carl was also difficult to pin down for any of his responsibilities. He missed meetings, constantly changed his mind on finalising the script, and was even apparently debating a massive change from the original 120-minute season to a script that was almost twice in length, something he couldn't possibly do with the remaining budget, and without a green light for a next season to a show no one had even seen yet.
Oh, that's so funny. I get that Netflix was kind of like a race to make like the next big hit, but surely if you're willing to spend that much money, it wouldn't take that much to like have 2 or 3 people like supervise whatever he's doing. Especially if you're spending that much money, you do want to make sure that like in the beginning stages of the show, it does start off well and, you know, not a mess like this one.
Luckily for Carl, and unluckily for Netflix, Carl had the power here. After all, Netflix were in for $44 million of sunk cost, and that's why when he told them production would collapse if they didn't send more immediately, they wired him $11 million, which was definitely going to...
Man, Netflix is definitely like the pay pig in this situation. Like, send me more money.
Almost immediately after those $11 million left Netflix's account and landed in the account designated for Conquest Production, Carl wired $10.5 million of it to his personal brokerage account at Charles Schwab. And
well, then you sell out $500,000 for the show. What do you want out of the man? Come on.
Which, if you know nothing about stocks or what options are, I'll spare you the boring details, but it's basically a great way to make your account go to zero in a very short period of time, unless you're a very savvy investor. Most of the posts you see on Wall Street Bets and similar subreddits are people losing everything, with some crazy moonshots sprinkled in. And
I want to see how much money he spent.
Everything.
Investing, fuck, that's $1,000. Who gives a shit?
With some...
Of course, Reddit is the place for like someone to like bitch and whine and like shit their pants about losing $1,000. Come on.
Crazy moonshots sprinkled in, and Carl thought he was going to be one of those. Essentially, these
Reddit.
people treat options like gambling, and if you want to see sunk cost fallacies, well, degenerate...
I'm sorry, go about, what did I say? Lost porn, investing $9,000. God, dude.
And if you want to see sunk cost fallacies, well, degenerate gambling...
Reddit really is like the paradise of just man children.
Option traders on Reddit. As for Carl, well, he was now essentially gambling in his personal account with $10.5 million of Netflix's money, which, and let me be clear, this is speculation on my part entirely, seems like an odd first step on the ladder, from $0 of Netflix's money to $10.5 million immediately. Seems odd, and maybe there's some more there. Either way, Carl seemed to think he'd figured out some secret about the world because he was betting against or for the impacts of COVID. He thought he could predict the market and placed millions of dollars of Netflix's money on that prediction. He bet that the S&P 500 would continue to fall rapidly, as well as that a biotech firm would rise quickly. Within a few weeks, he lost $5.9 million. Or should I say, Netflix lost $5.9 million. And
hey, come on, don't make this about Netflix. It was our man Eric that really got hurt in this situation.
Rough. You see, according to divorce filings between Carl and his wife, Carl started to act even stranger as the pandemic progressed. There were texts shown in court where he claimed to be able to predict lightning strikes and volcanic eruptions. Clearly, Carl had been on the slide for a while, and the pandemic really fucked him up bad. I know a lot of you will have also experienced this, but the pandemic really messed a lot of people up big time. Myself, I've got old friends who I've known for over a decade who were totally normal at the start, and then months later, they were posting about reptiles taking over the planet and all these fringe, crazed conspiracy theories, participating in crazy Facebook groups. So during these divorce proceeds, Netflix...
Wait, did I say transgender breeding program?
How fucked they were. The executive responsible for bringing Carl and the show to the table was made aware of everything. She took it to her bosses and shortly after parted ways with the company, as did other staff members directly above the project's acquisition.
She looks like a female version of John Goodman.
Carl entirely going through his wife to try and get access to the footage in an effort to figure out if they could salvage anything from this disaster and perhaps make a TV show worth their already sunk $55 million. His wife, of course, declined, stating that she feared his, quote, explosive reaction if she even brought it up to him. And this quote from the NY Times report needs no real explanation, but the new executive in charge of Carl and the project received an email from him that said he had found a way to, quote, map the coronavirus signal emanating from within the Earth. Yeah, so at this point Netflix got the police to involve a psychiatrist to determine if he was a threat to himself or others. They found out that he wasn't, at least for now. By March 21st, 2020, Miss Gerson, the Netflix executive mentioned above, informed Carl that Netflix was pulling out on the deal. They were finally cutting their losses. Essentially, Conquest would receive no additional funding, and if he were to try and sell the project to another studio, which he would be allowed to do, Netflix would need to be reimbursed the full $55 million that they had already pissed up the wall on the project. To this, Carl responded well, of course, claiming that they breached the contract, which is hilarious considering the court documents with his financial records from the divorce were now available. He knew Netflix had seen them, and they showed he'd taken their money and lost it gambling options, which I'm fairly sure wasn't in his side of the deliverables of the contract. He then, of course, took the remainder of the Netflix money and started to spend it gambling on cryptocurrency, the coin of choice, Dogecoin, of course. This man bought millions of dollars.
You can hear the disappointment in his voice. What did he pick? Dogecoin.
As a joke. Seriously, Google it. The origin of this cryptocurrency was literally to make fun of cryptocurrency speculation. Pure irony. But Carl couldn't have written a script better than this, because you know the funniest thing about it all? He fucking won. That $4 million of Dogecoin turned into $27 million.
What the fuck? I saw 4 million. What's the profit? What the fuck?
He apparently could win the cryptocurrency lottery of being in the right place at the right time.
That's my man.
He then did what anyone else would do, of course. He went out and started blowing the money as quickly as he could. I'm talking 5 Rolls Royces, Ferrari, a $400,000 watch, millions of dollars in clothes and furniture. He spent $8.7 million in a very short period of time.
Man, fuck that. If I basically went through hell to make a show that got cancelled, I would just blow all my money on hookers and blow.
Then during a deposition for the divorce, where they were trying to push to get some of this money, of course, Carl claimed he bought all those things with Netflix's money and that they were props for conquest. The TV show no one was...
Dude, we can't make this show without 5 Rolls Royces. Come on.
And that's the story so far. Netflix is currently in mandatory arbitration with Carl over their contractual dispute. He claims they broke the contract and owe him more money. They claim he broke the contract and didn't do what he said he would, as in, make a TV show with 120 minutes of screen time and not buy Dogecoin with it. At this point, it's unlikely that Carl will win anything, and even more unlikely that the TV show Conquest will ever exist. Much like Carl's career as a filmmaker. He had a perfect opportunity here to do something great, one that not many people get, with people who genuinely cared for him that had his back. Not only was he given a fantastic opportunity originally with 47 Ronin that he blew, but he was given a second chance, which almost nobody in that industry is. Unfortunately, it seems like the problems that arose during the 47 Ronin production were not just one-offs or rumours, and that Carl had some real issues going on even then. Despite all of this, people who worked with him and knew him well claim he is or was a talented filmmaker. But in this circumstance, the Aristotle quote comes to mind: there is no great genius without a touch of madness. So I'll be looking forward to see what comes out of the Netflix arbitration.
Unironically, yes, but not this guy.
Rather have spent their $55 million instead of keeping the shows you loved on air. I mean, just think of how many of these great shows could have continued if Netflix didn't piss away tens of millions of dollars on nothing and just stuck with what people already loved. Feels bad, man.
I like that. I like that he ended the video with a Pepe meme. When this guy in the video basically made his comeback by investing in Dogecoin. He really did win the lottery of being a director, where you make one god-awful movie, but it's kind of big enough to put your name out there, so bigger companies can be maybe we should give him a shot. But I feel so bad for Netflix giving him that much money and realizing 4/5 of the budget in total was spent on dumb shit that he took out just for investing. It really does feel like a child taking their parents' credit card to invest in something because they feel they're a genius at trading, but they get fucked over. He got pretty lucky with that Dogecoin investment, but at the same time, I think Dogecoin is the one cryptocurrency that's rarely ever had a huge uprise. So this really is the 1 in a million chance that he just happened to land on at the perfect time. The one thing that annoyed me is that I barely saw any footage of the show he was making. I mean, there was a couple of screenshots where he was out there in a army vehicle with a turret in the back. And that was kind of good, but I feel even if he did waste all the money, surely there'll be some parts where he could show to Netflix behind the scenes, showing the progress of the show, to at least keep them hooked and keep the actors working on something. But in terms of the director, I don't know how old he is, but I feel this is his one perfect chance to just retire with all the money. He won't buy the massive shit he wants to, but it is enough money to basically, live a nice cozy life until you die at the age of 80. That would be a good legacy. Just make one horrible movie with Keanu Reeves, and then make one show that never saw the light of day. That would be nice. I want that to be my legacy. Yes, please.